people have to live in unity.
We are still in transition.
Civil society has been decimated.
Of course, we rely on media.
And I think the government has not done enough.
The international community has failed to respond.
No place in the world is perfect.
Hello viewers, I'm your host Shivangi Mishra with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's kick off the show with a look at Indian President Draupadi Murmu's 3-day state visit to New Zealand, which underscored the strengthening of bilateral relations between the two countries. During her visit, President Murmu highlighted New Zealand's distinguished education system and advocated for greater collaboration in fields such as AI, climate research and vocational training. This visit, coming on the heels of her trip to Fiji, seeks to enhance both economic and cultural ties. Take a look. Indian President Draupadi Murmu arrived in Auckland on August 7th for a 3-day state visit to New Zealand, following an invitation from Governor-General Dame Cindy Kiro. She was greeted with a traditional Maori ceremony and honoured with a Royal Guard of Honour. During her visit, President Murmu held discussions with Governor-General Kiro and met with Prime Minister Christopher Luxon. She also spoke at an education conference and interacted with the Indian community and supporters of India. During her remarks, President Murmu highlighted New Zealand's reputation for high-quality education, emphasizing its focus on research, innovation, inclusivity and excellence. She noted that many Indian students are benefiting from the exceptional educational opportunities available at various New Zealand institutions.
New Zealand is renowned for its high-quality education with particular focus on research and innovation, inclusivity and excellence. Education remains one of the top service exports of New Zealand. In incorporation of Maori culture and language into the curriculum has not only contributed to its preservation, but has also enriched your education environment. Given the priority attached to education by our two countries, it seems natural that we have developed such strong educational ties.
President Murmu's visit aimed to further enhance the bilateral relations between India and New Zealand. Her arrival in New Zealand followed a 2-day state visit to Fiji. During discussions, New Delhi and Auckland agreed on the importance of expanding their economic relationship through mutually beneficial collaborations and partnerships, particularly in trade and business. President Murmu advocated for increased educational exchanges and cooperation between institutions with a focus on artificial intelligence, machine learning, vocational training, climate studies, cultural programs, and research. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon also met with President Murmu, and they discussed a range of topics including deepening cultural ties and regional and global security commitments.
India and New Zealand enjoy a warm and friendly relationship anchored by shared values rooted in democracy and rule of law. Our rich cultural exchanges and robust people-to-people ties have played an important role in fostering mutual understanding and goodwill between our nations. Educational exchanges are an important aspect of our bilateral ties.
New Zealand and India have a long history of defense collaboration and share a mutual interest in the stability and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region. Both countries are actively involved in the East Asia Summit and the ASEAN Regional Forum, and India serves as a post-forum dialogue partner of the Pacific Islands Forum. New Zealand is dedicated to enhancing defence cooperation with India by fostering increased interaction between their respective defence forces. The historical connection between India and New Zealand dates back to the 1890s, with the arrival of the first Indian migrants. Today, New Zealand is home to a substantial Indian diaspora, numbering around 300,000 people from across India. This diaspora is diverse, encompassing a range of languages, religions, and cultural traditions. Members of this community are active and influential across various sectors, including business and community initiatives. Celebrations of Indian festivals such as Diwali and Holi have become widespread throughout New Zealand. In London, a powerful rally organized by the Baloch national movement drew attention to severe human rights abuses in Balochistan. Hundreds from Baloch and Sindhi communities demanded justice for victims of the Pakistani crackdown, which has claimed lives and caused widespread suffering. Protesters decried enforced disappearances and criticized the ongoing siege and blockades in Gwadar. They urged the international community to intervene and end these humanitarian violations. A report.
A protest rally organized by the Baloch National Movement UK chapter was held at Trafalgar Square in London, attracting hundreds of attendees from Baloch and Sindhi communities, including women and children. The rally condemned the Pakistani forces' crackdown on Baloch protesters in Gwadar, Mastung and Nushki, which resulted in 3 deaths, numerous injuries and significant suffering. The protest also highlighted enforced disappearances of Baloch Yakyeti committee workers and the ongoing siege and road blockades in Gwadar.
As you are aware, in Balochistan, as it was invaded, and from onwards that day, a gross human rights violation is going on. Baloch Yakyeti committee, a political movement, gave a call of Baloch National Gathering in Gwadar on 28th of July 2024, and thousands of people around the Balochistan started moving towards Gwadar city, and Pakistani state establishment tried their best to stop them, and in different areas, in different locations, they opened fire on them and killed many people.
During the rally, participants carried placards denouncing Pakistani abuses and called for an end to the siege and blockades in Gwadar. They demanded justice for victims of state violence and criticized the Pakistani government's tactics of internet and road blockades, which they argue are designed to obscure state atrocities and deepen the humanitarian crisis. Speakers emphasized the need for international intervention to address these ongoing human rights violations and to support the Baloch people's quest for justice. In a troubling development, Pakistani security forces had used harsh tactics against a recent Baloch national gathering, marking a significant escalation in the crackdown on dissent in Balochistan. According to social media reports, security forces attacked a sit-in protest held in the front of University of Balochistan, resulting in the abduction of 12 female and over 50 male protesters. The crackdown was seen as a part of a broader pattern of human rights violations in the region, where state institutions are accused of brutally suppressing peaceful dissent. The protests were in response to the state's severe actions against the Baloch Raji Muchi movement.
Many people reach to Gawadar, and when they reach to Gawadar, again in Gawadar, no, there is a siege. There is no internet facility. There is no, even water is not allowed to supply to the people. The telephone connections, everything has been jammed. And as per the reports, initial reports, many people have been abducted, many people have been killed or injured when open fire was on the peaceful protesters. So against that, no, overall in Balochistan, not in Balochistan, all over the world, Baloch National Movement is doing protest to tell the world what is going on in Balochistan. And it is the time for the international community to wake up and stop the Baloch genocide.
The Baloch people are protesting for several key reasons related to their political, economic and human rights grievances. The Balochistan region, rich in natural resources, has often been viewed as neglected in terms of political representation and self-governance. A significant number of Baloch activists, political leaders and ordinary citizens have been subjected to enforced disappearances. These individuals are often taken by security forces and their whereabouts remain unknown, leading to widespread distress among their families and communities.
Time now for Asia This Week, the stories from across the continent.
On August 9, Japan held a ceremony to mark the 79th anniversary of the Nagasaki atomic bombing, with Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Nagasaki Mayor Shiro Suzuki giving speeches. Israel's ambassador to Japan was not invited to attend this year's ceremony, sparking controversy and a boycott by ambassadors of the Group of 7 nations. Russia's and Belarus's representatives to Japan were also not invited. The Nagasaki atomic bombing came 3 days after a US B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, carried out the world's first nuclear attack in Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, during World War II. The two bombings killed more than 215,000 people, with thousands more dying later of injuries and radiation-related illnesses. Japan surrendered 6 days later on August 15, ending the military aggression that brought it into World War II. South Korea's defense minister recently said that relevant authorities were investigating the defection of a North Korean resident. The person crossed the maritime border in the Yellow Sea and defected to South Korea, the Yonhap news agency reported on Thursday, citing South Korea's military. The defector crossed the northern limit line in the Yellow Sea, a contested sea border, off the west coast. The number of North Korean defectors arriving in the south had hit an all-time low during the pandemic, when Pyongyang moved to tightly seal its border. A witness at the scene of a deadly helicopter crash on August 7 outside Nepal's capital Kathmandu, which has left 5 dead, said one of the victims' bodies was completely torn to pieces. Local resident Veer Bahadur Tamang, who joined rescue efforts, added that the helicopter was burning in a ball of fire. The helicopter, which was en route to Rasuwa district from Kathmandu, lost contact with air traffic control 3 minutes after takeoff.
Moving on, Bangladesh is in a political turmoil following Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation and flight to India on August 5th amid widespread unrest. Protesters stormed the Prime Minister's residence, escalating the crisis. India is closely monitoring the situation, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi calling an urgent meeting to address the developments in the neighbouring country. A report. A cloud of uncertainty hangs over Bangladesh as destruction continues despite Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation and relocation to India on August 5th. Following her departure, protesters stormed and vandalized the Prime Minister's residence. India is closely monitoring the situation, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a security meeting while Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar briefed lawmakers, emphasizing the need for restored law and order in Bangladesh. Border forces have been put on high alert,
but will naturally remain deeply concerned till law and order is visibly restored. Our border guarding forces have also been instructed to be exceptionally alert in view of this complex situation.
For over a month, Bangladesh has been engulfed in student-led protests against job reservations for descendants of 1971 freedom fighters. The protests demanding Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's resignation escalated into violent clashes, resulting in nearly 300 deaths and thousands of injuries. Despite the Supreme Court's decision to scrap the reservations, violence persisted. Homes of Awami League leaders and minority Hindu communities were also attacked. An Indian cultural center in Dhaka's Dhanmondi area opened in 2010 to promote bilateral cultural ties was also destroyed by Jamaat-e-Islami supporters.
Opportunists, whether it's the opposition BNP or it's the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is the radical, pro-Pakistan Islamist grouping that is very active on the streets, they have joined the protests and they have actually brought in that violence into the protests. You cannot rule out the involvement of foreign powers who are inimical to Bangladesh's interests and frankly to our security interests also. Definitely you cannot rule out the fact that certain interests have been fishing in troubled waters.
Political leaders change, but the countries have long-term interests which will not go away. Bangladesh is a close neighbor, is a neighboring country with whom we have had good relations so far, and I think India would certainly want to continue that because whichever government takes over there. So that is not in debate that India would seek good relations. With India, if you look at the history of India's relations with Bangladesh, we have dealt with every government, including military dictators who came in and stayed for almost, I would say, almost 20 years. And so that's not an issue because we will be dealing with Bangladesh.
Bangladesh's political crisis is hurting its economy, fiscal performance and external metrics. In July, S&P Global Ratings downgraded Bangladesh's credit rating to B+ from BB- due to failing foreign exchange reserves. Continued disruptions could further lower exports, worsen the external balance sheet, and deplete central bank reserves. Xinjiang, home to the Uyghurs and other Muslim ethnic groups, has been plagued by mounting tensions and human rights abuses. The Chinese government has intensified its scrutiny and control over these communities with policies designed to assimilate them. This includes rigorous surveillance, suppression of cultural and religious practices, forced labor, and the establishment of mass internment camps, misleadingly labeled as re-education centers. The rise in Islamophobia targeting Uyghur Muslims and Kazakhs has been a growing concern for human rights activists and diplomats. Take a look.
The situation in Xinjiang has been marked by significant tensions and human rights concerns. The region is home to the Uyghurs and other predominantly Muslim ethnic groups who have faced increasing scrutiny and repression from the Chinese government in recent years. In recent decades, the Chinese government has implemented policies aimed at assimilating and controlling the Uyghur population in Xinjiang. These policies include strict surveillance measures, cultural and religious repression, forced labor programs, and mass internment camps termed as re-education centers. Several human rights activists, diplomats, and other intellectuals have highlighted the growing Islamophobia in China targeting Uyghur Muslims and Kazakhs.
I would like to call international community. Situation is dire. Millions of people suffer in concentration camp. So the country, particularly the country signed international convention prevent of the genocide, have a legal obligation stop ongoing genocide and stop ongoing crime against humanity. So unfortunately, we have seen many countries visit China. Many countries is silence. Today is silence in the complicity. So it is a time all human beings, all countries take action and stop this ongoing genocide. This is the responsibility of the human being and all countries.
Recently, human rights organizations collectively condemned China for dismissing crucial recommendations intended to improve its deteriorating human rights situation, as evidenced in the latest Universal Periodic Review conducted by the UN in January 2024. The statement, endorsed by multiple organizations, emphasized the accepted recommendations were primarily superficial and failed to tackle significant issues such as crimes against humanity, torture, or the persecution of human rights defenders and journalists.
China today rejected quite a lot of recommendations. Actually, 24th January this year, UPR in China taking place is a UN Human Rights Council, but after 6 months past, today we have witnessed Chinese government rejected so many, only adopted some recommendation, but most serious issue, for example, like arbitrary detention, crime against humanity, enforced disappearance, and arrested journalism, human rights defenders, this all crucial recommendation was rejected, Chinese government.
Chinese authorities justify their actions in Xinjiang as necessary for fighting terrorism and maintaining regional stability. In contrast, widespread international criticism has led to increasing demands for China to be led accountable for these alleged violations.
The severe restrictions and abuses faced by Uyghurs highlight a pressing need for international attention and action. And with that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.
People have to live in unity.
We are still in transition.
Civil society has been decimated.
Of course, we rely on media.
And I think the government has not done enough.
The international community has failed to respond.
No place in the world is perfect.